What's going on, everybody? Tobin here. Welcome back to the channel. So I want to talk to you guys today. Made a couple other videos about this, but I wanted to make a little more current one. Just want to talk to y'all about raising a feeder pig or multiple feeder pigs on small property. So if you're not familiar with us, we live here in North Texas, and we live on a 1 acre small farm, homestead, piece of property, whatever you want to call it. And we are always trying to be more self-sufficient and try to provide as much for ourselves as possible so that we're not having to go to the grocery store. And in doing that, we do a lot of things. We're currently raising about 35 meat chickens back over there. We hunt, we harvest multiple deer each year to put in our freezer. And then we raise normally 1 feeder pig. At times we've raised 2 or 3, but mostly just 1. Just wanted to talk to y'all about what we do, what works for us, and encourage y'all, if you're living on a small piece of property, you can raise a pig humanely and grow that pig out and ultimately have it be food for you. So if you watched our recent videos, you saw that we just dropped our feeder pig off to have it processed. So I figured it'd be a good time to talk to y'all about raising feeder pigs on small property. So first, what we do is not a pasture raised pig. And I don't know the percentage, but I'm gonna say above 95% of the pork that's raised in the world is not raised in a pasture setting. You know, raising a pig on, or multiple pigs on acres and acres of land is not a luxury that a lot of people have. And traditionally, pigs have been raised, domestic pigs have been raised on small pieces of property. So we raise our pigs currently in a 500 square foot pen. And if anybody is watching this video, if that bothers you or that offends you, stop right now and go to Google and do some Google searches. You're gonna get some varying information, but there are different sources, I'll say, that give you different square footages to raise pen raised pigs. And some of those footages go down to the 1-digit square footages, 8 to 10 square feet for 1 pig, which is, I mean, about the size of this little pen that we haul our pigs in behind me, which is very, very small. I don't necessarily agree with that, but 500 square feet is very high on the scale if you do some searches of what is recommended. So we'll talk about our pen first. 500, it's actually a little over 500 square feet. The pen goes behind our little garden shed here and goes way back over here. And we'll walk around here to the other side so I can show y'all a little bit better the bigger portion of the pen. This is the bigger portion of the pen. So as you can see, on our 1 acre piece of property, this pen takes up a very small piece of the real estate compared to the rest of the property. So it's not like it's a big portion of the property. We still have the rest of our property to utilize to raise our chickens on and do all the other stuff that we do. So for the pen, a couple things. You need a shelter for them, which we have this little shelter right here, which is starting to get tore up, but to keep rain off of them. And then you need shade, whether that's trees or whether that's a tarp or something that you put there for them to get in the shade. Especially here where we live in Texas, even in the early springtime we get hot, a lot of sun, and depending on what kind of pig you're raising, you could where they can get sunburn and stuff like that. So the other thing you're going to need in the pen, again, depending on what kind of pig you raise, but what the pigs that we raise, this is I feel like a necessity, and that is a place to make a mud hole. Now this mud hole is a little dried up. We took our pig to get it processed, like I said a few days ago. It's dried up by now, but normally this would have more water in it. And when you make that mud hole, don't make it up against the fence, because they will root underneath it. And speaking of that, we do not run a hot wire and we have not ever ran a hot wire, and we've had no problems with pigs getting out. Now, we have had some pigs, they all have different personalities. We have had a few where we were almost to the point of putting up a hot wire because they were starting to root under the fence. You can see our last pig, this pen was leveled out pretty well from our previous pigs, and our last pig that was in here, all these cinder blocks are to keep the chickens out. We need to move all those. They're kind of tacky, but as you can see, there's really nowhere where she was even close to getting underneath the fence. But like I said, that needs to be based upon your experience. If you get one, you know, have a good fence, but if you feel like they're going to get out, definitely get a hot wire up, because you know that could be a big deal. And then just don't put the water area, put it in the middle of the pen to prevent them from getting underneath it, because that will make it easier for them to get underneath it. So the next two things you're going to need is water and feed. Look into buying feed in bulk if you can. Call local feed mills, stuff like that, to save you money. Just a tip. And we do as much stuff here, you know, automated as possible. We have this, you know, what you call a gravity feeder or creep feeder, and we've been raising pigs for about 4 years now. That is the second one we've gone through. The first one wore out a lot quicker than I hoped. I think that one being, you know, galvanized or whatever it is will last longer. And then we have this water that I made. It's very simple. It's a trash can, PVC pipe coming off of it with a nipple here. I have the water source outside the pen because with it inside the pen, it's a lot easier for them to, they'll get up against that nipple and they'll rub on it to scratch themselves, and they'll pop that nipple out, and once it gets popped out of the main water source, that water source is done. It's not, you're not able to screw it back in there. And if you're, you know, like if we go out of town, say, or something like that, we have people stopping by to check, but were you not to come out and check on them, that water's gonna run on the ground and they're gonna be without water until you come out here and discover that, then have to repair it. So I've had a lot better luck with doing it this way, where the water source is outside and just the nipple is in really low where they can't scratch on it, and just stuck through the fence. So, okay, so that covers the pen and all the basics you're gonna need for the pig. I know I'm going through it kind of fast. Sometimes people get frustrated when I go into too much detail, so I'm trying not to go real deep into it. The next thing you're gonna need is basically a timeline for the pig. We buy our pigs, you know, timeline to feed the pig out and take it to the processor. We buy our pigs from a local friend of ours who raises show pigs. They're normally crosses, but they're some kind of show species or whatever you want to call it. But they're show pigs, and the timeline to grow them out from, you know, we get ours, most of them, they're 5 or 10 pounds, and we're growing them out. The one that we took a couple days ago was 265 pounds. You're looking at about 8 or 9 months to do that in our experience. A lot could change if you buy different breeds. There's lots of, you know, kind of breeds out there that are kind of cool to have now, like the coonies and stuff like that. We have not gone down that rabbit hole. We were trying to buy them as cheap as possible. We're buying ours super cheap from a local guy that raises show pigs. So if you're wanting to go cheap, look for that. Basically what we're buying are the culls, or the pigs that are not gonna be show quality. He sells those pretty cheap just to get them off his feed bill, and that's how we get them. So I would look into that. Like I said, you know, in the 6 to 9 month range, closer to the 9 months is what you're looking at. We do not grow them through the summertime. So we just took ours now, it's the beginning of June, and we buy them in the fall, raise them through, by the time it gets to be winter, they're big enough that they can live through cold weather. And then by the end of the springtime, right at summertime, they're big enough to take to the processor, and big enough that you will yield enough meat off of them. So taking the pig to the processor, super easy. There's going to be some kind of a domestic animal processor within probably an hour or two of most people. Just make some phone calls to local towns, get some, you know, talk to them. Most of the ones that you're going to talk to, they're going to be helpful, and they'll get you set up and get you scheduled. And then when it's time to take the animal, again, go up there with plenty of time, and they're going to help walk you through getting different cuts and what to do, all that kind of stuff. They'll walk you through all that. That's their business. That's how they make their money. And if they don't do that, find somebody else. But the ones that we've dealt with, they're very helpful. Even the pig that we just dropped off, we tweaked a few things, a few cuts, and they sat there, nice young man, sat there for 20 minutes and talked to us and enjoyed doing it. So just, you know, that part's should not be intimidating for you guys. It's not that big of a deal. It's a normal thing that they do all the time, and they're should be more than willing to help you with any question. So last thing I'm going to go over with that I feel like may be intimidating to people or overwhelming is transporting the pig. If you're going to buy the pig when they're young, when they're 5 or 10 pounds, you can put them in a dog crate, you know, whatever. I've heard of people putting them in the backseat of their car, but we usually go pick them up and we literally put them in a dog crate in the back of my truck, bring them home, and then we used to borrow a horse trailer from my cousin to transport them, and that worked fine. But if you watch our channel for a little while, you've seen that we built this pen on one of my smaller existing flatbed trailers. We have 4 videos on that on our channel that goes over the whole thing in great detail of how we built it. And if you have a flatbed trailer and you have the ability to weld, I would highly recommend making your own if this is something you're going to do long term. But if not, if you have to borrow a horse trailer or something like that, that's an option as well. Another thing that people, I think, make way more difficult than they have to and make it way more complicated is loading the pig. When we brought our pig home, she lived in this pen. When she was really small, we would let her out in the yard, but once she got up to about 50 or 60 pounds, she does not leave this pen, because they will tear stuff up. They'll go to your water spigot and scratch on it and bust the water off, or they'll go over by our pool and start rooting around at the base of it and stuff like that. So it's not an option for us to have them running around our yard. They stay in here the whole time. If you watch our last video, I didn't video it great, but we did show it a little and talked about it. I backed my trailer up right here, the one we built, backed it up right here, opened the gate on one side, put a piece of plywood, this piece of plywood that's still sitting right here, put it right here on this side. I literally opened that gate and just stood there, and within 1 minute she just sniffed around and literally walked right up in that trailer. I walked in there and closed the gate, and that was it. I didn't have to spank her, I didn't have to use a moving board to move her, nothing like that. She just walked right up in there out of curiosity. And the other pigs we've had have done the exact same thing. Now, if you're loading multiple pigs, that could get a little tricky, because you get one up in there and the others aren't yet, and then the others go in there and the other one comes out. That's when you'd have to have a moving board. I'll show you what that is. I made this one. The kids have broke it. These used to be handles, but they were pulling it like a sled. But you just take that moving board and hold it and then use it to push the pig, and it doesn't hurt them. It's nothing at all, and you just kind of use that to make them go in the direction you want to go. But again, it's super easy, and it's something that you shouldn't overcomplicate, especially if it's one pig. I think going forward, we're never going to raise more than one pig on our property. Like I said, we've raised 2 and 3 at a time. I think that's too much. And I think they don't grow as fast that way. So just one, it's not that hard. They're very curious by nature, and they're gonna, if you open that gate, they're gonna go out of that gate. And if you have the trailer parked there and have it where they can't go anywhere other than the trailer, they're gonna go in that trailer every time, guaranteed. So people are gonna probably wonder or ask, hey, how much does it cost to raise a pig? And to be honest with you, I can't give you numbers. This is something that we have committed to doing as a family, to better be self-sufficient and to be better providers for ourselves. And for us, this is something we're gonna do pretty much regardless of what it costs. So we just look at it as it's just another bill that we have, another, you know, the feed bill and everything like that. It's just another thing that we have to pay for. And so, you know, feed prices have gone up significantly, and you know, having to buy, you know, if you're starting out, having to buy a feeder and a water and put up fence and build a shelter and all that stuff, you know, the first one you raise, it's not going to be cheap. And if you're wanting to do this, I think, to save money, You know, I don't know that this is necessarily going to save you money. There are ways you could help reduce the cost. You know, you can go to local grocery stores and buy, you know, get their old bread and things like that and feed them and cut down on your feed bill and stuff. But for us, it is just another thing that we have to do. Just like with raising our meat chickens over there, we got 35 of them. I don't know how much it's costing us to feed them. It costs what it costs, and we're trying to buy things as cheap as we can, and still, you know, walk that line of buying, you know, feeder waters that are durable, feeders that are durable, stuff like that. So, but I would encourage you guys, you know, just to do some research. There's probably people out there who have really gotten down into the numbers really deep, and that's just not what we do. But if you're wanting to know that, but like I said, if you're wanting to be more self-sufficient, you're wanting to be able to provide for yourself, this is something I encourage you to do. No matter the size of your property, no matter you know, what situation you're in, I think this is something that most people can do if you have at least a half an acre or more of property. So one thing that people may you know, call us out on or something like that is, well, if you're wanting to be more self-sufficient, why don't you harvest the animal and process it yourself? And that's a good point. I have, me and my family, my wife and kids, we deer hunt. We've hunted my whole life, and I have harvested a deer, shot and killed a deer, and broke that animal down 100% completely on our own and put it in our freezer. We have the knowledge and the capability of doing that should we ever have to. Things get really bad, I can assure you that we're capable of taking that animal all the way down to where it's in our freezer in packages of you know, individual packages of meat. But I feel like what we pay the processor to do it and the quality that we get back is worth it compared to what we would do on our own. The cuts of meat are better and cleaner and bigger and able to utilize them more. The roasts are better. We can have them cut the roast down and to the sizes we want. We can have them package the pork chops exactly how we want, and they're nice and neat, and the cuts are, you know, very similar to what you're going to go to your local grocery store and see. And for us, and with the busyness of our lives, it's worth paying that to do that. If you want to process the animal yourself and do all that, by all means do it. There's plenty of information out there, and every time you do it, I promise you will learn more. You will understand more. When you go to the restaurant and you order a cut of meat, you're going to know where that cut of meat came from on the animal, all that kind of stuff. So I definitely encourage you to do that if you have the time and the resources to do so, by all means. All right, y'all, last thing on that topic, I am going to try to do a video here soon. When we get the meat back from the processor, we'll try to do a video and just kind of break down what cuts we get and what we like, what we've learned from, what we used to do versus what we do now. I'm going to try to break all that down for y'all just to give y'all a little bit more information to work with. We've definitely learned some lessons on what we do and don't do. You know, bacon, there's ham, there's different cuts you can get out of the front shoulders, the back hams, all that kind of stuff. There's a lot of different things you can do depending on your needs and your wants. We do get a lot of ground pork back, which we use on tacos and spaghetti and you name it. We use it on there, and like I said, we do harvest deer. It's really good to mix a bag of ground pork with a bag of ground venison. That really, I mean, if you're kind of a person that doesn't like, you know, says that it's gamey tasting, you add that in there and it's great. So, but yeah, I hope this helps y'all. Y'all comment below, what size property are you on? Do you have feeder pigs, or are you looking to get them? Leave some comments or some questions in the comments. We'll be happy to answer them as best as we can. We're definitely not an expert, but I think we've done it enough where we have something to say about it and have our opinions and what we've learned to input. So be happy to help y'all. If you got any other questions, you know, shoot us a message on Facebook. That's the best way to get a hold of us. If you can't, leave it in the comments, and we'll be happy to help y'all. We'll be getting us another pig this fall, and we'll be starting all over again. And it's nice to know, you know, we go open our freezer and it is full. I mean, it is. Right now it's getting a little low, but once we harvest these meat chickens and get this pig back, it's going to be really full. We're going to have to eat it down before deer season so we can put deer in there. But it's a good feeling. It's like having money in the bank. It's like having a full tank of gas in your truck. You know, having a full freezer full of meat is a good feeling. So I encourage y'all to start doing it. Even if you're just raising a few chickens to harvest, raising some quail to harvest, whatever. Be more self-sufficient, you know, provide for yourself more, be less reliant on the system. You know, I don't think there's ever going to be a point down the road where myself or any of y'all look back and say, hey, I regret doing that. I regret raising my own food. I regret, you know, raising my own, you know, having my own garden, stuff like that. It's always gives us a lot of pride, a lot of motivation to keep doing it, stuff like that. So, all right, y'all. Thank y'all for watching. Hope this helps. We'll see y'all again.